to another edition of the Move podcast. I'm your host, Steve, and thanks for joining me again today. Today, we got a somber topic. Obviously, we saw the events over the weekend, and I'm going to kind of cover that a little bit or a lot of it and kind of give my take on it and my reaction to it. And yeah, let's get started. As we saw over the weekend, our current president, Donald Trump, was once again somebody attempted to assassinate him. Somebody attempted to take him out. And, this is the third one that I know of, third attempt that I know of, which is really sad that we have a president that, we keep trying to kill. And that's a sad society to live in. And I'm not going to get much into the shooter. I think the facts are coming out on kind of where he stands, where he came from, his values, his morals, his stance on things, and they all fall in line with most these other shooters, not just these people trying to kill Trump, but other shooters that we have in this country that are killing people, killing kids, shooting up schools, taking Charlie Kirk out. It's the same group. It's the same type of people that believe in the same things. What I have not seen is somebody that is a believer in Christ do something like this. Not saying they wouldn't, not saying it's never happened, but what I am saying is this current day and age, you don't really see that very often, if at all. Yeah, but what I want to cover is this led me to have a conversation with my kid. Now, obviously, as you guys know, they've been following along. My son is homeschooled for multiple reasons, but he is homeschooled. And so I had to have this talk with him and explain to him, hey, this is kind of what happened. And I was telling him that some people were celebrating that it happened, but then bummed that it didn't come to fruition. And he was so confused. He's like, why would somebody celebrate killing the president of the United States? Like, somebody that lives in this country, why would they celebrate? He couldn't wrap his mind around that. And so I had to, I just explained it to him like this. I said, listen, I hope that no matter what you do in life, where you go in life, that you never fall for the bait that the news drops you. I hope you always stay centered, and you understand that what they're projecting on the news is far from the truth. And I explained to him our government. And, I told him, I said, the President of the United States more or less is the face of the United States and is the spokesman of the United States. He doesn't have a lot of power. We have a government set up to where one person doesn't have power. He can do executive things, but they're all temporary. Nothing is permanent. You can't do anything permanent by one person in this country. We designed it that way. But the news will make it look like everything that's going on is him. It's him, it's his doing, and it's like, no, it's not. He can draw up whatever he wants to draw up. And they'll say, thank you, Mr. President. Let me get this to House of Representatives. Let me get this to Congress. Let me see what happens. It is not up to Trump. Now, he can try to persuade and push and bully or whatever you want to call it, but at the end of the day, he can't do everything. It is not possible in this country. The way our government and our hierarchy is set up, we have a cadence to how things get done in our Congress and in our House of Representatives. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the president telling them what they're going to do. They are individually elected officials themselves that have their own vision and values and morals, and they have the option to vote. Okay, just like we have the right to vote, they have their options to vote. And in regards to what this president is saying, they can vote however they see fit. Okay? But the news will make it seem like none of that exists. It's only Trump, and then the next thing we have no King's protest. It's like, what is going on? This doesn't make any sense to me. Back to my point, though. I had to explain to him. I said, I hope you just understand that no matter who the president is, what's going on in this country is very rarely a presidential problem. It is more or less Congress, the House of Representatives, big corporations, corporate America. They are the ones influencing and impacting our country day to day, week over week, month over month, year over year. It's not the president, okay? We had a high Our cost of living here in the United States skyrocketed when COVID hit and Biden was president, and he fell on the sword for it. And then Trump came in saying he's going to save the day, blah blah blah, and here we are with an economy that's still crazy high. Again, you couldn't have more opposites between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Now, I know Trump people try to tell you how much better it is, and they're all going to try to paint their own picture, but the reality is the economy sucks. The cost of living is terrible, and we can argue till we're blue in the face on whose economy was better, but at the end of the day, it's still not a feasible economy for young adults to get into. You see more 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kids still living with their parents today than you ever have. And I firmly believe it's because the cost of living is so dang high. You can't afford to go rent a house. You can't afford to buy a house. You just can't afford it. When you're working part-time and trying to go to school, you're not going to make enough money. And then you got mom and dad. Most mom and dads don't have the extra means to go pay for a whole other house on top of their own house. So it just makes more sense for your kids to stay home with you, do what they're going to do, finish school, go get your job, whatever you're going to do. But we live in an economy that is just not, it is unreasonable. Completely unreasonable. The cost of living is just astronomical. And it was that way under Biden. And here we are with Trump, and it's still that way. So the president doesn't, guys, they have little impact on this stuff. But the news tries to make it look like they control it all, and it's their doing. Like, they set the prices of the gas stations. They set the prices of the candy bars. They set the prices of the meat. They set the no, they don't. They do not. They can implement things and try to pass through House and the Congress to try to help these costs. But at the end of the day, they're not individually making stuff this price or this price or that price. That is a collective. There's a lot of things that go into that equation, and it's not just the president. The president's just the face of it. And then, so I also was explaining that no matter what, no matter who the president is, no matter what the cost of living is, no matter what the situation is, it's never okay to go kill somebody. It's never okay to kill somebody. Now, the argument to this that I have heard is, well, Trump has deported people and he's been killing people, blowing up boats. Okay, well, Trump's not killing Americans. The president doesn't kill the American people. He does things to try to protect the American people the way he sees fit. Now, you may not agree with how he's doing it, but he's doing it to protect American citizens. That's what he's doing it for. He's not doing it to target you or target me. So he's not doing anything bad to the American citizens. Now, you may not like the way he treats outsiders that aren't American, that are foreign and not documented. You may not like the way his stance on that, but at the end of the day, they're not documented American citizens paying taxes and helping the economy. And if you look at his track record, all he's ever done is try to protect American people. And I'm not saying I agree with everything he does, because I don't. I'm my own person. I'm much like Joe Rogan. I'm kind of politically homeless at this point. I don't agree with the right. I don't really agree with the left. I think they're both kind of went too far both directions. And so I'm kind of homeless myself. So I'm not somebody that's sitting here, like, I don't have anything in here that says Trump. I don't have anything in my house that says Trump or MAGA. Or I don't have any of that. So I don't want people to get misconstrued thinking I'm a huge Trump guy trying to come to his defense, because I'm not. I couldn't have disagreed more with Joe Biden when he was in office, but I never would have wished somebody would have killed the guy. Like, the guy, we wouldn't need to kill him, right? We just need to educate ourselves. We need to show up at the voting booths. We need to do a much better job, in my opinion, on those things. And people like him, we wouldn't have to put up with for 4 years. But we didn't, and he was elected in, and we did the 4 years, and it sucked, and here we are, right? So I'm not on either side here. I'm kind of standing in the middle, looking at both sides, like, what the hell are we doing? So understand where I'm coming from when I'm speaking. So, but I was explaining to my son, it's never okay to kill somebody. I don't care if you disagree with them, if you don't like a policy, if gas is high, whatever the case, you don't kill them. Whatever you do not. That is never going to be the correct answer, ever. And what's sickening is I see these videos on TikTok and on Instagram where you'll have kids, my son's 10, and they're right around his age, and they, like, one kid was upset that the shooter didn't shoot Trump. Now, that is a taught behavior. And my 10-year-old only knows what he has been taught. He doesn't, we don't, you don't just sleep 1,000 times and then you wake up after that thousandth sleep and you're like, okay, now I know this and this. No, you are taught everything. You have to be taught. Your kids, we all had to. You had to be taught to talk, walk, eat, how to go to the bathroom, how to clean up after yourself. Like, you are taught every single thing. And so to have a small child being upset that the president wasn't killed, that is a major problem. A major problem. You are putting hate in your child's heart. Now, if you want to feel that way, I don't agree with it, but you're an adult, feel how you want to feel. But to project that to other people, to project violence, to project that kind of negativity and hate and put it on other people and try to convince them to feel the same way that you feel, that is completely garbage. That has no business being in our society. And those people have no business having kids. And I'll take it a step further. Some of these, not only do they have kids, they're also school teachers, which is reason a million whatever he's not in a public school. Okay, we live in a time where it is all the time you're seeing teachers molesting kids, raping kids, sending dirty messages to kids, getting handsy with kids, pushing their political agenda with kids. Like, I can go on, and it's happening all the time. And when I was growing up, I don't, I didn't have that. I didn't see it. Didn't really hear about it much. I'm not saying it never happened, but it definitely wasn't something that was very common. But you walk into a school now, those teachers that are in there now, they're not like the teachers that we had when we were growing up. That's a completely different generation of teachers there. They don't teach the same. They don't handle kids the same. They don't look at education the same. They look at education as, I'm speaking more to public schools and some charter schools. I'm not really speaking to private. I don't know a lot about private. We looked into private. We just decided it was best if we did the homeschooling thing. So I'm not speaking to them. So I want to be very clear who I'm speaking to, so we don't get this misconstrued. We don't get my words mixed up and apply them where they didn't belong. Public schools mainly here. They have like this baseline of, okay, we need to teach this because this is on the state test, and based on our scores, it depends on the funding and this and that, right? So they're really big on this state test, which the state test is a complete waste of time. The criteria on there is garbage, and what they're learning and having to learn and memorize is garbage. It doesn't apply in life. It applies on a state test, which is just complete. Like, why can't I'm not even go there. So they get a baseline of what, okay, we have to have the state test is on these dates, and these kids need to know X, Y, and Z for the state test because we have to score in this percentile to get this kind of funding, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, outside of that, there is a lot of freedom in a public school where they can kind of put their angle on things. Well, this is what happened, and this is why. And instead of saying, this is what I think, this is why. And honestly, I remember when I was growing up, you never really heard a teacher's opinion on something. They would just give you the facts. And I remember directly, some people would ask a pointed question. Well, how do you see this? And they would just, hey, I'm not here to give my own opinion. I'm just here to teach you guys what the facts are. Then you guys can interpret that how you see fit. That was the response you would get when I was in school. If you try to ask a teacher their opinion on something, they would not give you their opinion, as they shouldn't. They're not there to give you their opinion. They're there to give you the facts. They're there to teach you education, give you an education. They're not, it's not, we're not there to, shape our kids the way that our teachers see fit. And taking it a step further, this LGBTQT plus, I think I got all the letters in there, has no business being in a damn school. That is a sexual group. Why are we having a sexual group in schools? That is disgusting. We know high school kids are mainly, we get it. A lot of them are active, right? I understand that. But to be pushing that is absurd. And no different than we shouldn't have a heterosexual, like that shouldn't be a thing in a school. Like, we should be leaving sex out of our school systems. Now, it's one thing to educate on sex and, the anatomy on it, how it works, what can happen, blah, blah, blah. But those are things you need to know, right? Those are important things. But we don't need to go any further than that. We don't need to have groups. We don't need to be encouraging this stuff. That is a massive, 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 massive problem that we have in this country. We literally have these types of groups in our public schools all across this country, which is just sickening. And I couldn't even fathom growing up in my school having something like that. I'm not against gay people. I'm not against bisexual. You do you. That is your own personal business. I don't need to know about it. We don't need to rally for it. I don't need t-shirts. You do what you want to do behind closed doors. By all means. It is your personal life. And I'm going to do what I want to do behind closed doors because it's my personal life. We don't need to have groups to advertise this stuff, to convince people to join our group, to try to get funding, to get donors, to make nonprofits. For what? For what? If you feel a type of way about somebody and you love them, then go be with them. We live in the United States of America. You can't do that most other countries unless they're the opposite sex. But in this country, you can do that. We just don't need to rally. We don't need to put that in our public schools. We don't need to encourage. Okay? I know several gay people. Several. And they all will tell me the same thing. I knew I was this way at a very young age. Okay? You don't need to convince anybody. Okay? You are who you are. You figure out who you are pretty quick. Just like all those people, all of them will tell me. I've asked them. Yeah, I knew at a very young age. Way before anybody else ever found out about it, I knew. You don't need a group. So, I'm mentioning the teaching thing because this guy was a teacher. Now, he was a tutor. He wasn't like some full-fledged, full-time teacher, but he was mentoring kids. He was prepping them for state tests in high school. So he was affiliated with kids. So that's why I'm mentioning the public school and all these things, because it's like, this is becoming more and more and more of a problem. I follow these groups, this group on Facebook, and like Preds versus Prey or something along the Prey versus Preds. I don't know. Anyways, great group of dudes, and you would be amazed at some of the people that they actually go. And, like, they got a high school coach, and what's sad is they get ridiculed by the local police department. Like, we have local police departments defending these pedophiles legitimately and trying to criminalize the people that are trying to call them out, which is just insanity to me. We just live in such a society that's so backwards. I don't know where we went so backwards, but we live in such a backward society. And, a lot of people try to tell me, you're closed-minded. No, I don't feel like I'm closed-minded at all. But I have lines in the sand, so to speak. And if I feel like that line gets crossed, I'm going to say something. Okay, I'm going to stand 10 toes down on what I feel and what I think. Because we live in the United States of America. Now, what I will not do is I'm not going to incite violence. I'm not going to incite, taking somebody's life or planning to take somebody's life or wishing somebody would no longer be with us. That's not the right way to go about things. I enjoy talking to people that couldn't disagree with me more. In person, face to face. I don't like doing it over the computer because people, they like to run their mouth when they have a keyboard. But when you talk to them face to face, you can actually have a constructive conversation because they don't get near as ballsy with you. But I enjoy talking to these people because I enjoy legitimately trying to figure out, how do you believe what you believe in? Where did this come from? And I also enjoy saying, this is why I believe what I believe. This is why I stand where I stand on something. And you'd be so surprised how many times you can either agree to disagree, or you can make somebody stop and think like, man, either I didn't know this or I never thought of it that way. Now, I stand 10 toes down on where I'm at on certain subjects, like the LGBTQ in schools. yeah, I'm 10 toes down on that. I'm not wavering. You're not going to tell me something that's going to make me think, huh, I've never thought of it that way. That's not going to happen in that instance, right? Like, there are certain issues, the sexual assaults, all these things that are happening in schools, teachers on kids. You're not going to convince me. I don't care what you say. However, I could have a conversation with you and provide you with facts that you probably wouldn't know of that even existed. And then you can go fact check it, and you'll come back like, "Holy cow, man! I didn't even know." Like, yeah, yeah. Now you know why I feel that way. But there are other issues. I change all the time based on the information that I have. I'm not. I don't know it all. I never pretend to know it all. I learn just like anybody else learns. I'm just trying to figure life out like anybody else. Now, I've had some experiences. I've been in some rooms that a lot of people have not, and been blessed. It hasn't. It's not because I'm me. So I've been very, very blessed by the good Lord above. He's always watching out and taking care of me. But I've been able to have conversations and be in situations that a lot of people have never even been in. And so I feel like I do bring value to the table. I have wisdom in my back pocket, and I've earned that wisdom. But it's there, and that's why I come on here and I speak, because I have yet to see a reaction. I see either I can't coexist with these people are murderers, and then on the other side it's I can't, dang it, we missed them again. When are we going to get this guy? Blah blah blah. So you have complete, and I'm standing in the middle, just looking at both like, what are we doing? Why are we behaving this way? On one hand, you immediately just cancel somebody out. I can kind of see why. To me, they have more of a valid point than the other side does. But we are the United States of America. We have to figure out, how are we going to coexist? How are we going to be on the same page? Now, we're all never going to agree. We all know that. But how do we get to a point where we can agree to disagree respectfully? And on the other hand, to me, this is more gross than the other one. We are bummed that somebody didn't get killed. We celebrated when Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. And then we ridiculed Erica Kirk since that day on how she's handling the situation, how she didn't love this guy, how she's whatever. You guys have all seen it the way I've seen it, right? So you have this group, and it's like, how could you feel that way? How could you feel that way about another human being, a fellow American? How could you have so much hate in your heart that you think shooting and killing somebody and death is something to celebrate? It's something to be happy about. And I pray for those people every day. I pray that we can get some of that hate out of their heart, because you shouldn't live that way. It's no way to live. It's no way to live. And I truly hope that those people find happiness, and they find a way to get rid of some of that animosity and some of that hate in their heart. And I'm big on fitness. Because it that kind of stuff, that hate and stuff, you go to the gym and put one in, you're gonna feel a little different when you leave. A lot of that hate comes from insecurity, comes from anxiety. It doesn't actually stem from a fire burning within you. A lot of these people, they struggle to function in society. They feel like an outsider. They don't have confidence. They hesitate on a lot of things that they're doing. They only speak behind a keyboard, but they won't speak, to the masses or in public. And it's because they have this insecurity. And you go to the gym, that stuff's going to get solved pretty quick. Your confidence goes up pretty quick. You feel good about yourself, feel like you're on the right track, feel like you're doing something productive. You start incorporating that discipline, because I'm going to tell you right now, you go to the gym and you make that a part of your normal routine. There's a lot of times you wake up, you don't feel like going to the gym, but it's that discipline to make yourself go. And you start developing this discipline muscle, and your whole life will just start changing. And I pray for those people. I pray that they find fitness. I pray that they find a higher power, Jesus Christ, and I pray that maybe some of this hate can go by the wayside, and maybe you don't have to agree. You can still look at this guy and be like, hey, you couldn't be further from what I agree from, where I see things. But you know what? We got 3 years left. I'll make sure to go vote and do my part, and we'll see what happens. Like, we got to get to that kind of point to where we understand how our government works and how it's never going to be one person. Our government is set up to where it's never going to be one person. We literally designed it that way on purpose. Just because you're the president, you are still very, very limited on your power. Very limited. You are more or less the face of the United States and our spokesperson. That's more or less what you are in the president. Now, obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it, but you're very limited. That's why our government is slow. They got to vote on everything. Things has to get passed, and the people that are voting on are people that we vote in. And we can get on a whole different conversation about term limits and stuff that I'm not even going to get into. But what I'm saying is it's designed the right way. We have the right type of government. What we don't have is we don't have the right type of society. We don't have the right mix of citizens. We have social media, which is great in its own way. It really is. You'll see tragedies happen and people are able to get help. And, we've came up with GoFundMe and things like that, is pushed through social media, and it allows families to receive help in times of need, which is absolutely fantastic. But we also have a lot of negative things that go with social media. A lot of bullying, which has increased youth suicides. We have things like when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, we have people celebrating it, and we have people trying to fight the people celebrating it, and it's created this mass, just fight amongst ourselves. So, social media is good in its own way, but it also has a lot of negative implications if you're not careful with it. People misuse it all the time. I think we're all a little guilty of misusing it from time to time. At least in our lifetime, we've misused it. So, the last thing I want to discuss, though, people thinking this is some kind of setup, some kind of distraction. I don't believe it for a second. You're not going to try to plan an assassination attempt in an effort to cover something else. Now, do I think the Iran war and some of that stuff was to try to cover up the Epstein files? That's a whole different conversation. Don't even get me started on the Epstein files. You'll get me all fired up. Oof. My blood's already pumping on that one. But stuff like that, guys, get over yourself. Don't be ignorant. Okay? Grow up. And it's people I say seeing this. All right, I saw a few people. I didn't see a ton, but I saw a few people. It's like, grow up. You're too old to be acting like a damn child. We're not going to be faking an assassination attempt. That's nothing to joke around about. It's nothing to fake, okay? Another man's life was put at risk because of another man. Another man lost his life because he's going to be going to prison because he bought into the rhetoric that the news pushes, that social media pushes. He bought into that, and it cost him his life. No different than the young boy who killed, I say boy, he was young to me, Charlie Kirk. The guy that killed him. Same thing. He lost his life. He's never seen the light of day again. He's probably going to get the death penalty. It's like, guys, these are sad things. Not only did Kirk lose his life, but then some young guy that was, 20, I can't remember how old he was, 21, 22, something like that. He was young. Lost his life. This guy was 30, 31? Lost his life. He's never going to see the light of day again. That's sad. Now, I don't think they're wrong. Tyler Robinson and Cole, they definitely don't deserve to see the light of day again, but it's sad that it even got to that point. It should have never even been to that point. We have people being locked up for life and facing death penalty and stuff. For what? For what? It's not worth it. We just got to be better. We got to do better. And I'll continue doing my thing and just hoping and praying that maybe this message reaches other people. Maybe more people can start seeing the world the way that I see it, which is just in a non-violent way. I don't need people to agree with everything that I say, but can we at least agree to see the world in a non-violent way? Can we at least agree to let people be them without judging them, without degrading them, as long as they're not violent or inflicting you in on a personal life? Let them be. Leave them alone. We got to quit doing this stuff in schools and starting at a young age, and they grow up and they're 21, 22, shooting people, 30, trying to kill the president. Come on. We got to be better than that. That's all I have. That's my response. And I really, really hope that my talk with my son sunk in, and he understands that Don't buy the media stuff. Keep your head where it needs to be. Understand how things work, and understand that violence and killing somebody is never going to be your answer. Never, ever, ever. You should never support it. You should never celebrate it. Um, not the American people. Celebrating or being proud that somebody like Osama bin Laden was finally killed is completely different than watching Charlie Kirk get shot in the neck, or Donald Trump almost get his head taken off, or two other attempts to try to do the same thing. That's completely different than Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, right? Like these are people that killed Americans, specifically Osama bin Laden, but killed American people, and we went back and we got in to make sure that wasn't going to happen again. That's completely different. So don't get it twisted up. All right. Be good out there, guys. Appreciate you stopping in. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And let's just work on being better human beings to each other and coexisting at a much higher level than what we currently do. So be disciplined. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. God bless, guys. Thank you.